Hello, good afternoon and welcome. A rather guilty looking Charlotte there. She literally just nipped during the intro scene. We saw you sneak.
That's it.
Well, it's Friday. It's Thursday. It's 5 o'clock. I really wish it was Friday. It's been one of those weeks. And we're back again for Law Firm Marketing Show and Tell. We have 4 with us today. Rich is off this week. But we have, well, at least for a little while. I know, Simon, you've got to nip off very shortly, but we shall see how long we can keep you on for. So before we dive into today's topic, let's have a little bit of an introduction. And Simon, I'm going to ask that you go first this time. Let's hear a little bit about you.
Hi, I am Simon Marshall. I've worked in the legal sector for 20 years. I work for small law firms as a virtual CMO, turnkey operation, everything they need from PR all the way through to digital marketing, BD, everything. And then for larger firms, we advise them on digital marketing and we rank them against each other as well, just for the fun of it. So yeah, that's us, TBD Marketing.
I love it, just for the fun of it. That's what data's all about. Once you dive in there, it's like going down the rabbit hole. It's fabulous stuff. And who's next? So, Kat, let's hear a little bit about yourself. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Kat. I head up Flair Insight. We are a marketing research company and we help law firms with their marketing strategy. We help CRM teams grow and cross-sell to their clients, teams to pitch and get background on their targets whilst they in the pitch process, and that's us really. Anything that's research focused, then we can help with.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Lottie, Charlotte, please tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm Charlotte and I am the CMO for Novum Learning, which is an online learning platform for the professional services industry. We work mostly with law firms and it's supporting industries, so legal tech companies or other sorts of vendors as well. And we bring together all sorts of knowledge from different areas of business that can help people run their businesses more successfully.
That's great. Thank you very much. And just very, very briefly, I'm David SAYCE, digital marketing consultant. I help those within B2B and professional services make the best of their digital channels with the likes of helping out with the joys of migrations. Apparently, I put the grace into migrations. So somebody on this screen might have said last week, and also audits and digital strategy. So that's me. So today, let's have a look. What are we talking about today? I know, Kat, you were mentioning we had something on the sustainability front, the ESG side of things, which I would have thought, I know within, especially at the moment with some of my clients, it's a real hot topic within professional services.
Yeah, so I think a few weeks ago I was talking about, I think Simon was saying how many law firms are covering net zero at the moment. And I was, of the top 50, every single one will have some sort of campaign. And we were talking about how to improve them and how potentially segmenting by sector would be great. And it's almost as if Adolf Shaw Goddard was listening and within, a day or two put this campaign together. I reckon it didn't take them that long, but to me, it's a thing of beauty and it's the best that I've seen for the last few months. So I think they launched this in May, and in terms of the design perspective, that isn't my background, but to me, it looks beautiful. It has dynamic design. There's a little kind of windmill going, but it's a survey of 1,000 CEOs and their strategy for sustainability. And it's got key takeaways. It gives a call to action. So the call to action is you've got 4 years basically to buck your ideas up and get ahead of your competitors. And then it goes into different industry segments. And then it's also got a download that you obviously have to put your details in, but then it invites you to have a free 30-minute conversation. So I just think it's great. I don't know what everybody else thinks, if they think that there's any improvements or anything, but yeah, it uses video. It's also got webinars as well. So I think they're on they've already done 3, which you can download, but they've got another one coming up next week or the week after. So you can sign up, and then they are promoting you with the contents that's coming out, and it's coming out with more stuff about the survey. But yeah, to me, I just think it's comparable to a kind of Big 4 campaign, or even better in some ways. So
it looks like thankfully there's been a lot of time, a lot of resource, a lot of thought behind this. It is visually, I think it's actually quite stunning. Some beautiful design there, everything from the colors, the fonts, the shapes being used within that, and also just how the page flows. There's actually a lot of information there, but it's done in such a way that it doesn't jump out at you straight away and hit you in the face. It just gives you the chance to explore those topics further.
I love the lack of photography.
That's a good point.
I love the script back nature of the kind of color coding as well, right? There's stuff to draw us in with that green, obviously the right color for a sustainability campaign, but there's no confusion on the page of what I should be looking at. Right, I love that. I love the
or
no
cliched images.
Well, you know what it's like, David. It's like a club sandwich, otherwise, isn't it? Somebody chucks in another ingredient. Here's some olives, and here's a tomato you don't want, and all that kind of stuff. And instead, what we're left with here is, it's beautiful. I mean, these guys for 20 years, these guys have smashed it in terms of doing great campaigns. They have at AG. Is that Greg's team, Kat? Is that right?
I think. So I know I used to work with Brian McCready at BLP.
Yes, that's
I think
right.
he is head of marketing now. So and he is he's ex Getty Images before he went to BLP.
Is he? They have I mean they've got previous, right, in terms of amazing campaign work. When they did the Commonwealth Games and they were in Manchester, weren't they? All those years ago, Adelshaws were the lawyers to them, and they did the whole campaign behind that as well. So they did campaign marketing years ahead of a lot of other firms did. But this is just beautiful. I've seen so many ESG campaigns or sustainability campaigns recently, and I think I want to see more in terms of it really hitting those sweet spots for what it actually means for a client, in the role and in their exact area and stuff. I need to go and take a deep dive into it as well, but I just think it's lovely. Yeah, I wish I'd done it.
I think I'm sure this year,
Brian, that was a cry for help, Brian, for your budget. By the way,
I'm sure this year they did a rebrand. I may be mistaken, but I'm sure they've gone for a much more simplistic kind of black and white branding. But then, obviously, for each campaign, which is the color that you would associate with sustainability, bang on green. So that's the one that they picked. But yeah, it works really well. I think it's
that's on the actual site, though, is it? That's on the main website, is it?
It's their
sustainable.
It is, but then on the sustainability campaign, I think they picked different colors and different imagery and things. But this kind of outline is throughout the site as well, I think. So,
I mean, here's they've got the main site nav at the top here, but it looks fabulous. I mean, I'd love to know how what went into building this out, getting it set up.
What I was going to say is that it reminds me of Flipper and the computer game. I'm sure everyone must have played with that, right? But and that's a compliment to say that. I think Simon was saying earlier that you just exactly know where to look, and there's no confusion about what. So it's very engaging. There are a lot of moving pieces, so it kind of draws you in, but at the same time it's really obvious what everything does, and I really like that. And I think it obviously builds on known behaviors, but it does so in a more exciting way, if that makes sense. So a lot of moving pieces, different layouts, it's all exciting, but it's still obvious where you need to go for
just back to what we were talking about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Can you scroll down a little bit, David, on that events thing, just that bit there? One more. There we go. Have you noticed the FOMO wording? Coming soon, be the first to hear it, right? That's a huge FOMO call to action. and we can't help ourselves but sign up to that flipping thing as well. Good on you, Adolfo Goddard, for using B2C language on the B2B website and producing the right result. I guarantee. Well, if Brian's, been, you say it was Getty, Kat?
Yeah, but that's maybe 10
there's
years
no surprise.
ago.
Those guys have got a journey that says buy this here, right? There's no confusion about what he's trying to get them to do, and they've brought that game to this page, haven't they? So good on them.
They've got we were talking weeks ago about having methodologies as well, and I think at the top it talks about how they use the Market Research Society's code and some other code as well. So it's like it's in that very grey writing, using SMR and the Market Research Society ethical research guidelines. So they've got how they've done it, when it was. It's European as well, and I'm assuming so. It's UK, Germany, the Netherlands, and France, which I suspect are their target markets. But yeah, it's all very clear. But yeah, there's nothing I can pick apart really. So
as if we'd bring stuff on here to purposely pick it apart. I mean, I've got to say, when you sent this over. I was just taken aback when I saw it, just thinking about, as I say, the time, the effort, the possible cost behind this as well. It's a fabulous looking asset.
And I
Guys,
think
I'm going to bow out for a bit, and I will be back hopefully about 5:45. Okay.
No problem. We'll see you later.
I was just going to say that I think what this massive piece of work also does really well, which is what we spoke about 2 weeks ago, is skinning the cat, essentially. Not you, as many times as you possibly can.
We're gonna have PETA trying to cancel us now.
But like, the amount of information that's in here is something that you can feed off for months on end.
yeah.
I'm
assuming because I think the next event is in a couple of weeks. I can't see anything else that they're going to drip feed content from, but I know it feels like they've taken inspiration from PwC, who do a global CEO survey every year, and I think they've got at least one person who that's just their job. And they segment their content by sector. I think they drip feed stuff for months and months. So I'm not sure what else that they're going to do apart from this, because 4 webinars are great, but I wonder if there's something else that's going to come out. So yeah.
And I think, Charlotte, as you were saying, the effort that goes into this resource, it's not just a one-time piece of information. There is so much in this that can be used elsewhere. I mean, I think tying in with the webinars as well, it's a great source of content for some time to come as well. And that is absolutely fabulous. I'm fascinated by those little dials that keep turning. It's great. and the hidden windmill and the graphics at the top, it's stunning.
Well, as a 3, we probably scan websites constantly, and I am guilty of not really processing the information, whereas this I'm fully drawn to. So the psychology behind it is fab.
What I was going to say is, or I don't know if other people prepared, because I came very unprepared today, I will admit. But what I was going to say is, would it be a good exercise to ideate here live around where this goes? In terms of, obviously, we are just, throwing ideas around. We can't read their marketing team's minds in terms of what the returns are that they expect, or how many ways they are thinking about repurposing this. What is the next step? But I think, maybe it's an interesting thing to think about between the 3 of us, that should we have this thing that we collectively agreed to be amazing, where would we take this next?
Yeah, thanks for coming unprepared and putting us all on the spot like that. I really appreciate that.
If for me, if you're gonna segment your target audience a different way, what a lot of law firms are doing are they're targeting GCs about sustainability. Are there other stakeholders that you actually need to be in contact with? So is it the CEO? Is there a perspective with the, I don't know, the FD or something like that? Or from a disputes perspective? So could they make it more around, and they may do actually, if they go into the sector content, they may drip feed their service lines into it as well, but can they do it from a service line perspective as well as a sector? So
it's a good idea.
I think just having a look at this as a landing page, I can see the thinking behind this going into other campaigns, this amount of time and effort. And I think, as you say there, Kat, the sector specific information, it could be absolutely fascinating. I mean, I remember it was always a case of let's get the 40-page white paper together, the almost clunky PDF that sits on the website, and at least back in the day was rarely used beyond it sitting there as a PDF.
yeah,
And I think these sort of pages that sit on the website like this, they have such an impact, but the ability to reuse, as I say, the content and no doubt elements of that page as well across different channels would be incredible. I'd love to see what they have going out that complements that, whether it's offline, social. Be fascinating to see how it all comes together.
Yeah, I haven't seen, I mean, obviously your LinkedIn feed doesn't give you everything that a law firm puts out, but I haven't seen anything in terms of dynamic content on there, but I can imagine they are doing it. But yeah, in terms of other things, I can't think of anything else that I would go for. I don't know, Charlotte, what you would think, just to throw it back to you.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think that one of the things in terms of content that I'm a fan of is this buyer enabler content. I don't know if that's the actual expression, but I quite like sort of checklists or self-assessment forms. And I think with sustainability, and again, this is just to give it a psychological spin, who in their worldly mind would go out and say, we are not sustainable enough, or, we are not sustainable at all. This is not something that we are thinking about, right? No one will admit that. Maybe to your lawyer, maybe if you're, genuinely a huge champion inside the firm and you're like, no, we are not doing enough. But otherwise, I think there is a really good opportunity to create a bunch of content on the back of this, which allows people to do almost a self-assessment to place their business compared to other companies, or, to say, well, we are doing this, but we are not doing any of these stuff. This is maybe something that we should be thinking about. And that organically leads into services, or that organically leads to, okay, I do actually need to speak to someone, but
yeah. I'm just thinking of I won't name the company, but a company I was looking at yesterday, and it's almost a prerequisite now within our reports to put in stuff about sustainability. And they said that they use Biffa Environmental Services to pick up their bins, and I was like, oh, right. That was their sustainability promise, basically, that they use a waste company who then recycle stuff, and that was their, and the fact that they've been using webinar technology since the pandemic. So if we did have a checklist that said, right, okay, in terms of your supply chain, what are you doing? In terms of this, what are you doing? In terms of travel, electric cars, your fleet, all that kind of stuff, and you could think there are legal things that you can tie into that. And eventually, there's going to be the whole disputes angle as well as regulation starts tightening. So yeah, I can definitely see that. I suppose the other one, which is something I saw Simon talking about, obviously on LinkedIn, as half of my LinkedIn page, about different things that are happening this year. So there's the COP26 event in Glasgow, which is where I think there was an energy white paper released towards the end of last year, at the start of this, by the government. and it was all about using hydrogen in manufacturing and all this kind of stuff. In terms of each industry, what kind of renewable energies they need to use. And the whole industry speak was about when that event happens in Glasgow, there's going to be lots of regulatory announcements around that time. So maybe they could have a sub-campaign that's built around something huge that's going to happen in the UK. So
I
think that's quite interesting. I mean, just thinking about, I've done a fair bit of work with the likes of GDPR and those sort of regulations. I mean, I remember, I think it was one of the insurance acts coming through with a law firm. And again, it turns into this rather dry PDF or article page somewhere on the website. Livening it up with something at least half the effort that's gone into this would be absolutely incredible.
I was also thinking.
And even for,
sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, because I was going to bring in something completely different.
We've
All
just
I was
heard,
say was
we've gone very Monty Python now.
I was just going to say, for smaller law firms, they often don't have that knowledge management function. But there are, if you look at the, I think there's an energy industry association, for example, but there are lots of industry associations that will give you milestones that are coming up over the next year. Where if you can think from a campaign and PR perspective, what's going to be topical, what information is going to come out, and who's going to be interested when, because COVID's the huge unpredictable thing that happens, but everybody immediately started looking at law firm content and thinking, right, what does this mean? So if there's a legal angle to it and you know there's going to be a legal angle, then start planning ahead. So
yeah, I was going to say this very naturally lends itself to coast-related marketing. So I think, you know, if they wanted a bit of PR, if they wanted a bit of, you know, brand building, essentially, to say this is something that our firm deeply cares about, and also involve the individual people to say, you know, look, we have all these amazing people working in our business who are going out planting trees or who are going out doing this and that. And just the amount of amazing content, which is personal, you know, individuals from the firm can go out and say, you know, we just did this as a firm together. And, you know, that can be an ongoing something. And I think, A, it's a nice thing to do. B, they are doing what they preach about.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important that, you know, we are not just a firm talking about sustainability or telling you that, okay, we can help you with sustainability. Here we are demonstrating that this is something that we genuinely think is important.
And I think that's absolutely vital, because sometimes you can look at these pages and think, well, that's very nice, but you know, you've just basically given the marketing team a nice big budget, and they've put something pretty on there, normally involving pictures of wind turbines and people in the woods and things like that. But I think as soon as you bring in that personal story, then it really starts to change. And as you say, that's something that can go on throughout the year. It can be reused time and time again.
Yeah, so that's all I can think of.
And, you know, that was my topic of the week. Look at this website.
But that's brilliant. So, okay, I have another idea, unless you were going to come in, David, with your idea.
Go for it.
We love the page. What else can we do the same thing with? What else? Like, is there another topic as large, as exciting, as relevant in everyone's life as sustainability, where we could replicate something of similar sort and still feed the law firm?
Well, I mean, just very briefly to begin with, I think this is the sort of thing that elements of it needs to be brought into a lot of sectors within the law firm, even if it's just almost as a showcase overview of what they're offering. The way this page is designed, how it looks, how it makes you feel, a similar format could work as a great introduction into that sector.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge amount of possibilities for this.
Yeah, it kind of beats the carousel type content. You know what I mean?
Oh, please don't not carousels. I'm really hoping that they are now going away. I've never been a big fan.
Yeah.
They've been one of the fads of the last probably 5-10 years. They're basically they're a pain in the ass, and they don't do what people think they're doing.
And they're never dynamic either. There's always somebody's like 2018 campaign that's number 5.
On slide 5, yeah, exactly. And it's normally a Friday afternoon when somebody in the marketing department gets a phone call saying, senior partner wants this removed right now, do it. And then it becomes a whole, oh my, how do we get around doing that? Or what goes in its place? Yeah, I mean, it's also, with things like this, it's making sure that you can adapt it as well. So, I mean, the carousel is actually an interesting point of view, because you're dealing with specific amounts of text, specific types of imagery that fit within a theme, at least a design theme within the page. So with pages like this, you need to be careful as they're updated. Do you have the same designer that did it before, or somebody who can sort of replicate that look and feel? Because I've seen pages like this and they look fabulous for the first year, and then you see over time all of a sudden there's words falling out of boxes, the icons that were once great are starting to look a little bit clunky. So, you know, with something like this, it's so important to, I mean, as you said with PwC, having somebody dedicated to look after it and take ownership is a fantastic way to go about it.
Yeah.
So is there a best practice of, because I would imagine that they worked with someone external to build this, unless they have some incredible people in-house and a huge team, which could be. What is the best practice of working with an agency? What should a marketing team working with an external partner ensure when they request a brief, ensure when they get the work done? So the reason I'm asking is because I recently spoke to a tech consultant, completely different space, but what they did, and you know, they kind of made it their personal selling point in a way. They wrote down everything they did and how they did it, so anyone coming in at any point in time would be able to replicate or go through the code and be like, oh, okay, this is the thing that's broken, or okay, this is what she did, this is what I need to retype. Is that something that, you know, marketing people working in law firms should be thinking about? If there was like a best practice checklist we could put together, what does that look like?
I think areas like that are definitely a major point for consideration. I think as well, I think one of the biggest failings I've seen, and again, specifically in professional services, has been somebody seeing a page like this and going, yeah, we want that on our website. And from that point, it either goes into marketing or external agency, and it really doesn't have the thought and the in-house brand behind it. And it just becomes a bit lost along the way. So I think, you know, it's the same when we started to see more video online. It was the case of, oh, we must do video because somebody else is doing it. I think having a good idea of what it is that you're trying to do, why is this going to be there, and how far can we push the resources that we have in-house, out-house, the money side. I mean, how far are we going to go with this? And then I think it's a case of, you know, working with a good agency, taking on board what they're saying, but also making sure that they don't end up maneuvering you away from what you're trying to do and who you are as a business. I think that's also a consideration as well.
Yeah, I've worked in a firm previously, and this is PR agency focused, but our tagline was around the mid-market, and I think they may have released a press release, or they were about to release a press release that just completely misstated what the firm was about. So that was the firm's full strategy and targeting, and they had got it completely wrong. So yeah, it's making sure that they reflect that brand and that strategy as well is a big one. So,
and I think it's much like, I mean, especially, this is a website, or at least a web page build. It's very much a case of considering how long it's going to take, and making sure that you have time to go out and thoroughly test what you're getting back, whether it's in-house, as I say, or out-house. In the past as well, I've seen some, companies going through big migrations, they're re-platforming, they're redesigning or rebranding, and those initial graphics that they get back from the agency are stunning. They look fabulous. And back in the day, especially, the stuff you could do with Photoshop, it was difficult to replicate with a website. So there was always that moment of disappointment when you lifted the lid and you saw what they'd actually created and looked back at what they said they were going to do, and it just really didn't quite match up. But I think it's definitely, this is the sort of thing that you want to be very organized with, and you do not want to rush out to market.
I wonder how much they built before the survey, they got the results from the survey. Do you know what I mean? Maybe they thought they knew that they'd have a couple of pie charts, but what would be the critical elements of them? So that they had the build, and then they could look at the results and go, right, okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was an idea of how this could look, and then it was maybe then, well, let's see what data we can gather around this, and then seeing, blending those two. It's a difficult one. It's the chicken and egg. Do you start with the data and try and figure it out, or have a think of the look, the feel, and take it from there?
Yeah.
But I think that's very similar with any content on the website. It's do you start with the content or the look and feel? And it's a big issue when it comes to the rebranding as well.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything more to add to that conversation apart from let's work with someone who actually knows what they are doing. And I think this is where it comes in that, and this might be a completely different topic in terms of CMO skill sets, but someone who can see the bigger picture, someone who is able to take that step back and be like, well, okay, hang on, but what about this? What about that? Who do we need to bring in? So I think this is very much a project management exercise as much as it is a marketing exercise.
Without doubt. Yeah. What was I going to say? I just think, the whole sustainability, it's just grown and grown and grown over recent years, especially. And it's interesting because I think there is a lot of pressure from firms to get something out there. And as we said with the example of Biffa Waste, it's about not trying to just shoehorn in. I mean, I remember one client, this was a long, long time ago. They were looking at their green credentials, their sustainability, and it was literally a 20-minute discussion with their marketing department of, what do we do that's green? Okay, we recycle the newspaper, the paper from the printer. Yeah, that's good. We turn off the lights at night, and it was that was there. And fair enough, you've got to start somewhere. But I think there's a lot of pressure from firms to have something that is towards maybe a showcase page or showcase publication that shows off what they are doing from a sustainability point of view.
Yeah, and like I said before, this is the first one that I have read. So, and going back to Charlotte's point about what other topics could you do this with? The obvious one is around digitization and how companies are having to move forward digitally. So the more industrial the company, so chemicals companies or manufacturing or mining, whatever, are coming at it from a much less mature perspective than your financial services, for example. So there is a sector by sector basis for that. My other thought was around something that I've picked up on maybe in the last 5 years, is that firms have started targeting general counsel, and they've mainly done this through roundtables or putting a network together. And if I was that GC of a FTSE 350 company, I could bet that I would have been invited to 20 or 30 of these roundtables by law firms.
Yeah.
And could you actually do a sector by sector basis for those GCs? So you would have to get quite a high rate of return on your survey, but that would be amazing to them, I can imagine. But just getting that actual factual content about what they're struggling with, for example, what's happening in-house, what are the regulations that they are having to face, and how they're going to implement risk measures, and pulling that all together. I think that'd be a brilliant one. So
it's interesting. I know quite a few companies that do those almost monthly roundtables. Not just professional services firms, but quite a few in digital marketing area. And it's great in so many ways. I mean, from the agency side as well, it's the showcase of, we've brought together the top e-commerce heads of digital. It's a great source of information to pull out of a team of established people like that. It's a great idea to do.
So what if we looked at sector-specific surveys, what can we do to incentivize people in taking part in a survey as such? Because a part of my issue with surveys is that we will, give you or put you in a draw for £1,000 worth of Amazon voucher. Please take part. That's just...
It's normally the cheapest iPad they can get. Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's just so old, and let's be honest, if someone works in a really big company as a GC, they can probably ask for an iPad if they can justify why they need it, and that's it. But I'm just talking out. So what can we do around bringing that to life? Because I think that's such a difficult exercise always, because then you set out to do something, and once you've got 5 people to take part in the survey, it's going to be bloody embarrassing if you can't get at least another 150, so the survey actually looks like a thing, because you kind of made that promise to the 5 who already started taking part. So here's
the survey of 5 people and what they think. Yeah
exactly.
There is so even though I've just said roundtables, everybody's being invited to them, one of the reasons that they'll be used is that there'll be a kind of Chatham House concept of come along to this, you'll find out what your peers are doing, and it will be confidential.
Yeah.
But what you're actually doing is copying each other and getting to the same ballpark level, aren't you, really? Whereas if you've got a survey, you can anonymize it a bit more, so you can find out what the benchmark strategy is, but you're not necessarily finding out who your exact peer down the road is and what they're doing. So they've both got pros and cons, but I think with the survey thing, then what Adelshaws did was that you could have a private, confidential conversation with them about what that means to you, and that's what I liked about them, that they'd gone, right, we've done a survey. This draws you in. This is the beautiful design. This is what it means to you. Here's a video. Here's a webinar. But then actually, let's talk about specifically what you're going to action from this. And I can imagine they have already done that with those 1,000 people who took part. So the call to action for them is you will find out about what's happening with your peers, but then also we'll give you a free hour conversation where we help you audit your best practices and what you should be doing. So.
But just to jump back on that, sorry, David, and I will give you the mic after. But do you think so in the software world, which is something that I'm deeply enthusiastic about, but you don't always want to have that conversation necessarily, or you don't know that you want to. So yes, okay, we are getting that 1 hour consultation, but what if I don't want that? What if I think there is a challenge, because you're essentially already saying that I'm going to try and sell you something at the end of this. Please fill in this survey so I know stuff about you, which makes it easier for me to sell stuff. That's what my marketing brain is saying. So it's great if people do it based on that, but it would put me off at least a little bit, unless I was already there.
I think whenever I've seen those sort of surveys, and the first few questions are, please give us your name, address, date of birth, occupation, income band, and all the rest of it, it straight away puts me off. So, I think there's a lot in what's going to draw somebody to take part in it to begin with, as much as how the questions are phrased, how the delivery of those answers is phrased as well, or the mechanism behind it. Trying to make it as painless as possible while still gathering the data. It's a tricky situation. But yeah, it is always the worry of, am I doing this just to be sold to? Yeah.
I wonder, they may have hired telephone interviewers to actually do the survey, to get that conversational aspect to it and actually talk people into doing it. Generally, you get an appointment setter and then they get called back for a 10, 15-minute interview. So that is another way of doing it. It sounds as if they had the money to do whatever they could with it. So that is obviously a more expensive thing to do, but it can often reap rewards. And yeah, there will be a sales aspect to it, but I also wonder what their sample is, whether it's clients or those that know them really well. And so therefore they're more likely to answer it. They're a big firm, and I'm sure there's some statistic on their website about how they advise something like 50% of the top FTSE companies. So if you think of that, and FTSE listed doesn't mean British company, then a lot of them could be their own clients who feel not obliged to do it, but they already have that engagement.
So one of the things I was thinking about with these surveys is, if I could do this and at the end of it get a report, which so when in surveys you get these charts and percentages and like all these. If someone said to me, at the end of all of this, I will give you a bespoke piece of document which will have a little red dot which shows your answers, because we can, so it's essentially keeping your data. It does, and I see how that potentially puts some people off as well. But I would be more likely to give my data away if a law firm says, look, we will keep it confidential, it doesn't go anywhere, these are the terms and conditions, blah, blah, blah. But I will give you a bespoke benchmarking document which says this is how you're doing compared to everyone else. Because by the time I filled in the survey, so it's just, I think people forget.
But that would, if you're thinking of a sell-in, when I look at client feedback for law firms, a lot of the time, general counsel are saying, what I need in terms of, and this is from an advice perspective, but what I need in terms of your advice is something that's digestible for me to then just give to the board, rather than I have to look at 50 pages, then I have to draw it out, then I have to sit there trying to use PowerPoint, even though I don't really know how to use it, blah, blah, blah. Whereas if you gave a document or a PowerPoint 4 slides that they can then show to the board and say, this is the risk, this is where we are, and this is where we need to improve, then that would be a brilliant sell-in, I think. So.
And I think it probably leads to people being more honest with some of their answers as well. Mm-hmm. Thinking, there is some value. And that's the key thing there. You're talking about somebody getting a considerable amount of value for what is relatively little effort going in there. I think that's an incredible idea, and I can see marketing departments in all these law firms, all these agencies going, "Oh my God, how much work has Charlotte just given us to do? We've got to do bespoke reports now."
Well, but just imagine. I'm sure there is a very clever software which is able to do that for you. I have no doubts.
I think as well, it's looking at how much do you actually have to do to make it bespoke. It may well be that, I think as Kat was saying, having even that one pager that says, look, this is how you fit into the mix. A bit like Simon's matrix that he does for the digital 100 and all the dots and understanding, well, this is us here and we're here because, and if we want to be up here, we need this to happen. And I think something as simple as that would be an easy starting point.
Yeah, I agree.
Fab? I don't think Simon's going to reappear. Well, he may do.
Oh.
We could wind up just as he says hello.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do is, if we do wind up a little bit early, I'll keep the broadcast going just in case he comes in, and just leave him hanging and see how long I can get him sitting there.
But just as an idea, in terms of other areas as well, I was thinking if we can do, or someone could do something around gender balance, which would be interesting, because I think there is, again, it's a hot conversation. We know the issues that arise because of that, and I think it would be interesting to talk about. And then, there come things such as not just gender, but you could also look at, say, women who have children, women under the age of XY, or men under the age of XY. So when it comes to the people breakdown of businesses, or the people who the company is made up of, I think that would be a really interesting statistic to put together, and there is a lot of work that could be done on the back of those.
I know a few, a couple of specific people I've worked with who have done some of those studies to put them on the website, about gender diversity, salary, and all of that, and been very, very nervous of the results, and quite rightly so, because it has ended up being old white men, which is probably me, to be honest, that are making up the majority, that have the most money, and all the rest of it. And it's really interesting, actually, how companies try and deal with that. They find themselves literally just pulling back the curtain and saying, all these articles that you've been seeing in the news, yeah, we're one of those companies that, we are almost one type within the business. It's interesting, but I think it is something worth doing, and I think it's something, I always think transparency for any firm is a great way to build authenticity. And so having that sort of information and not tucking it away in a PDF in the footer of a website, which I know one client did, but even saying, look, okay, this isn't great, but this is where we are now.
Yep.
And stay tuned, because we're going to do the same next year, the year after, and let's see what changes. Let's see how we can make things better. Very similar to sustainability reports as well.
There's an obvious Brexit angle to that as well. So how the makeup of your company is changing as you are less able to resource people from Europe.
Yeah.
And could you, in terms of diversity, have that angle of resourcing people within Britain who actually reflect the British makeup? So yeah, there are plenty of different industries that are struggling in terms of what's happening with Brexit and migration since then. From a law firm perspective, it tends to be the legal technicality of what's going on rather than specifically what's happening in those companies. But every single company within their accounts will cite employment, migration, all that kind of side as a main Brexit pinch point. So yeah,
I think there's plenty for firms to do if they want to. It's all there. It's all available. Ask the questions. Build a stunning web page like Addershaw Goddard's, and off you go. I think it's all very interesting. But I think, just as going back to the example that we started with today, that was hats off to the team behind it. Last week, we gave a shout out to one of the firms who was celebrating their 150 years. And again, that was another substantial piece of work being done, creating all these topics that were on brand, told a fabulous story as well. And I think it's making sure that you look at what the return on the investment is. It's probably going to cost a lot, let's face it. But, the return that comes back on that, whether that's in the equity of the brand or within gaining new clients, I think it's something to be very wary of.
If you look at that site, I wonder what percentage of their marketing budget has gone on that. But if you were to think, both of you, if you had a bootstring budget instead of everything, what is it that you could emulate from the Addershaw Goddard website? For me, there's the obvious call to action and breaking down content into 2-minute takeaways is something that I would take away from it. But I don't know if there's anything else from your perspective that isn't, we've got to spend 500 grand on this.
I think even just building out some of these elements, I think from a design point of view, fabulously done. I think I can imagine this is going to be shown around a lot of businesses, with people going, this is the sort of thing that we want to be showing. But I think diving deep into what is actually being offered here, how the mechanisms work, how I've just noticed the wiggling fish there. Oh wow. It really is. It's an interesting website. It's informative. And, that goes back to what I say to many clients. You need to be informative, you need to be educational, and bonus points if you can entertain at the same time. Wiggly fish on a website to me is good entertainment.
In your experience, David, do you think you have to pay a lot for simplicity?
Yeah.
And I was just thinking that as I looked at it, I thought this is brilliant.
Yeah.
And you would think with a bootstring budget you'd be able to make it a simple campaign, but actually people don't do that, do they? They try and bung in as many images as they can, as much text, and try and almost make the word count be the ROI.
Or worst case, having somebody over your shoulder looking at it going, oh, look at that white space there. Let's put this over here. I think you need to be very careful with copywriters, graphic designers. I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the most talented people I've ever known. And it's that simplicity. It's almost the simple brush stroke on a page, and you look at it and you go, wow. And I think that especially, we look at that there, having not gone through in any depth the copy there, the design of it, knowing when to and when not to is so vital with design. The horrible thing is they all make it look so simple, so easy, that you take a glance at that and you think, yeah, we can do this, not a problem. But it really does pay to invest in those areas.
Yeah. And back to copy, I think one of my favorite quotes from someone who I don't know who it's from, but the quote says, "Sorry for the long email. I didn't have time to write you a short one."
And then there were two.
There we go.
I've got a feeling that might be an Oscar Wilde quote, but it probably wasn't talking about email.
Could
but
be.
I might.
Someone made it 21st century.
Yeah, it's that time, you can tell. Right, I'll tell you what, we're losing people and gaining some people very quickly. She's enjoying watching the rain out the window. I tell you what, we will wrap it up there for today. We lost Simon earlier on. Rich couldn't make it. Cass just disappeared into the ether. And before anything happens to you, I think it's time for us to say farewell. Any last words from you?
No, I'm too young for that.
Didn't quite mean it like that. I'll tell you. Yes, hold on. We shall be back next Thursday. We shall be back next Thursday. Oh, Kat's come in. Let me bring Kat back just to say farewell. Hello. So we're just doing the wrap up now. As everyone was leaving and new people were joining.
No, sorry, I will say goodbye.
Any last words from you, Kat? I mean, I think it was fabulous finding that webpage, and it's been great to go through that today.
Yeah. I just think it's set the bar, really. That and Shoesmith's Octopus are my campaigns of 2021. So
who can forget? We're going to have to do. I'm going to have to put together a best of video
for Christmas.
Well, probably sooner than that, to be honest. But yeah, it will definitely be octopuses in it.
Right, I will crash out again. But thank you all.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and for everyone watching, I hope you join us same time, same day next week. We'll see you then. Take care.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.